In this chapter, we're going to discuss image management, which includes reviewing your images, looking at a report, adding images to a report, being able to delete images that you've taken and don't want anymore, and also we'll talk about sending those images across to whether it's a thumb drive or a network cable that you're connected to, all those things. So now when you look at the screen, you see that on the bottom you have your images and your cine clips that we've taken throughout the course of a study. We can go ahead and press our review button, which is up here on the top of the keyboard. And that'll allow us to look at all of our images and clips in what we see as small thumbnails, medium thumbnails, and full screen. And what that does, it just makes the images bigger, so the aspect is different. And when you're in this large screen mode, put your cursor down on the image here, and then try using this rotary nav key to twist through. That's a quick way. So if you go into full screen, you're able to evaluate those images a little bit better, and then you can use that rotary nav key to navigate through all of your images. And you'll see that as you scroll, it obviously goes up and down on your scroll bar, depending on which way you're going. If you go back to your small or middle, small is probably the easiest way to be able to select multiple images or to delete or send to. So go ahead and press on one of your images there, as well as maybe one of the cine clips. And in order to do that, try holding down the control key and the set button, and maybe skip then down to number 11 and hold down the control and the set key. And there you've selected multiple studies, or multiple images rather. You'll see that you have the garbage can pop up as well as the arrow. These are little quick keys or quick links, and what that does is if you click on the delete with the set key, it'll say, are you sure you want to do that? And for this sake, we'll just click cancel maybe.
Okay.
But that would be how you would delete 3 at a time or multiple at a time. There is a select all function down at the bottom. If you did that, obviously it selects all of your images and cine clips. Here you would be able to delete. And if you do that, it's always going to give you a prompt like, are you sure you want to do that? Which is a nice fail-safe.
Right.
Because oftentimes, you might just bump it accidentally, and then you can cancel like you did there. Here's where you could deselect all, but since everything is selected currently, let's try going to the send to option. And what that will do is it'll allow you to have your different targets where you're going to send it. Right now, if you had a network printer connected or the iStorage, which is on the system, but also I have a thumb drive which I'll plug in here, and we'll talk about in another chapter how we have 4 USB ports, 2 on the side and then 2 on the back of the machine. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll plug this in, and it'll take just a moment, and we'll hear the machine recognize it, and it'll go ahead and it'll pop up here, and let's click cancel, and we'll come back in.
Okay.
And now go ahead and go to send to. And now it recognizes that you have your thumb drive there. It also shows you that there's no folders or no active studies, anything on that thumb drive. You'll see that down on the bottom it tells you the options for being able to export. And the JPEG AVI is the most common way for the exporting, so you can plug it into a computer or transferring that a Windows-based or a Mac or anything will recognize those files. If you want to change to a bitmap AVI or a TIFF AVI, you just use the trackball and the set key to move those over. And you can just change those. And then if you want to have your report included, which we'll talk about in just a minute, you just select that box, and it's a PDF report which comes across with it. And when you're done and you're ready, you do click that OK button. We'll go ahead and do that. And now down at the very bottom, you're going to see this little task management. If you leave your mouse over it, your cursor, it'll say task management. Let's click on it. You can see those arrows going across there. It'll show you that in your storage media task that you're sending, it'll show you your progress, your study's name or the patient's name, and it'll say where it's going, and then also the content as well as the date. So you can go ahead and hit the exit button, but that's a good way to know if you're sending multiple studies across how long it's taking depending on the images and the cine clips that are stored on there. Let's go ahead and hit exit while that's transferring, and you can use the trackball and go to exit there. So that was our review. Let's click on report, which is right next to review. Here is where we've taken a bunch of images and a bunch of clips. You can select the report type that we're in. Let's try going to our...
Let's go to carotid.
Yeah,
I think
because we did some carotid images on there. Let's scroll down using the trackball and the set key.
Oh, trackball and set key. Okay.
And you can also use, you just found out that you can also use the rotary nav key.
I'm going back and forth.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
So here's where, now looking at a report where we have 3 measurements taken on our proximal CCA, and we also have a couple measurements taken other places. if you want to delete one of these measurements, there's a way that you just use the trackball and the set key, and you can click in there with the set key, and then you can just use the backspace button right there in order to delete that, and it'll actually remove it from your report. You can also change the method in which it's calculating from last to average to max and min.
Right.
So depending on where you are in the facility and what type of measurement you're taking, you can modify those options. I want to talk about the image select down here. Go ahead and click on that with the set key. And here's where on the left side all the available images and cine clips. I don't believe that it works with the cine clips, but what you want to do is you can move images onto your PDF report, which is exportable,
like
as we
that.
saw. Yeah, it's a really
nice.
a really great feature, because oftentimes you want to take maybe some pathology that you saw, or if you're doing a fast exam in the emergency medicine department, there's a way that you just want to have a few images. So let's go ahead and select, just pick a few at random here, and then use the single arrow to move one over, and then maybe scroll down a little bit further and select one and use that single arrow. If you use the double arrow that you see on your screen, it's going to move all of your images over, which will just create a little bit longer sort of report. That being said, you do have the option of moving all the images back onto the available images side, which then won't, you just start over and you move one at a time. That's what the single arrows are for.
And it looks like I can go back and forth. If I move something over and I find out later this is better, I can just select this one and move it back.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. So now we'll click on OK there with the set key and the trackball, and let's go to our print view. So here now we're going to see your facility's name. We can add a logo, and we can talk about that in the system setup link. It'll also show us all of our measurements, and it'll also show us the images that we push onto the PDF. And if you use the trackball and the set key to slide down to page 2, scrolling down that way.
Oh, there we go.
So if you have multiple images, say 2 or 3, 4, it'll push them down there as well as on your comments. Let's go ahead and go back to close. And here's where you have the ability to go to your other pages and to add comments. If you go to next, this is where you'd scroll through the couple pages of carotid measurements or OB measurements, abdominal measurements, and you could put in that what your comments were, and those will be added to the report as well.
Okay. Anything you wanted to save comment or just hit OK?
Go ahead and click on OK. Yep. And so now what that'll do is you have your report saved, and we talked about in our review. Let's go back just to review to show people how to do that. Here's all your images and your cine clips that you took. You can actually view your report from clicking up there in the top corner, and it'll show you, if you went back to your carotid, we kind of mixed some studies in there together, that you would see that all of your measurements and then as well as your comments are there. And
do I have to take a picture of the report page? Do I have to save it right here, or does it?
Some people will. Some people will save images of their report page.
But it's not necessary if I'm exporting a PDF of it.
Correct.
Okay, that's really nice, actually.
Yep. If you are sending it to a PAX viewer or you're exporting to a thumb drive, some people will save images of each page of the report, but that's not necessary per se.
Yeah. I think that's a habit because not a lot of systems do that,
right.
but I like that it just does it on its own.
Yep. And so, depending on which sort of report that you're in, you can, if you're doing an OB, there's an analyze and growth where you can select which,
charts.
Everything that you saw, if you're doing all your growth measurements, there's a way that you just click on analyze and growth, and it'll show you all the different, if you're doing a biophysical profile, all those different things that you can measure will be there in each report package, again, depending on which exam preset that you're in. And there's a different way, you're doing a whole page versus 100%, and that just zooms it up, and so you can see what you're looking at a little bit more closely. And then you just use the trackball and the set key to close out.
That's very nice.
And then when you're finished, you can either click OK, or you can also hit your review and report button right there. Yep.
Okay. So when I'm going to send it over and I select which images I want to send over, either let's say I'm going to select them all, I'm going to send to, and this is where I choose. If this is clicked, that means the whole report page in a PDF is going over with it.
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
Yep, so you want to make sure that your target where you're sending your images or your study to is selected. You want to just verify that it's the sort of image that you want, and that's the study that we sent over a few minutes ago. You see it there on the thumb drive now.
Great. Does it automatically save all of this to the hard drive of the system, or do I have to send it there?
No, as long as you're saving images during your study, they will be saved on the hard drive until you physically go in and delete them. So there's not a worry that, you know, by sending them over onto a thumb drive that you're also deleting it off of your system.
And I don't have to manually send it to the hard drive. It's just there.
Right. So go ahead and click cancel since we've already sent this one over, and let's go ahead and click exit.
Exit.
Oh,
right
on the
here.
screen. Yep,
Yeah.
there you are.
What if I'm set up to a PAC system and if I ended the exam, does it automatically send it over, or do I have to manually send these?
There'll
each
be an
time?
option that discusses that in setup.
Okay,
And also
good.
refer to your manual or contact your sales rep or your product specialist as well.
Depending on if you're sending it to.
Yep. You know, there's a little more information that's inputted in for a DICOM sort of setting, so that's where you want to, you know,
Make sure
coordinate
it's set up.
with
Yeah.
with the right people. Absolutely. If you want to go back and review the patients that you've looked at and scanned previously and get into a study, the iStation button is our archive. So when you press the iStation button, you can see all the studies, and they'll go from most recent to more into the history of the machine. You can also click on the columns, and they'll order them by alphabetical if you click on name or the ID,
Or
which in this
date.
case is date time, or the exam date and time exactly.
That's
And you'll see that the exam status is there. And you'll also see any of the other information that you inputted into the machine. And so if you wanted to send a whole study from the machine instead of going into review, here's our iStation where we use the trackball and the set key. And now up pops a menu that gives us our option. Go ahead and click the set button there. It'll show you if you want to review images or go back into your patient information. And you can see that there's some options there. That's where you would delete an exam if you've moved it. Now you want to free up some space. You also have the ability of send exam, and so if you click on send exam, that's another fast way to jump into sending a whole study across. Yep, exactly. And we've seen the screen before just a few minutes ago where you picked where you're going, you're making sure the device is accurate, and then you're also making sure that the image type is accurate as well. So go ahead and click cancel since we don't need multiple of that study sent across. But you can see that you get those options, and that iStation is a really important button to remember because that is your archive and how you get back in. You have 24 hours to get back into a patient that you've done previously, and that's a HIPAA regulation. And so you can actually activate. You'll see that it's grayed out right now because we're active in that exam. But if you were to click on, and these are paused, but when you end an exam, if it's within 24 hours, you have the ability to jump back in it and add some images and things like that. So after you've gone into your iStation, you've reviewed patient information or sent them across to whichever modality you want to view it from or send it to, then you're essentially done. You've reviewed images and clips, and you've put them on your report and finished that out, and then you've also looked back into your iStation.
Does this system prompt you when it's time to start deleting things from the hard drive, or does it just delete them automatically, the oldest?
It'll go through and it'll start deleting from the oldest, and then you have a way of, if you hit the iStation button here, it'll show you. You can go in and you can find the percent
of open storage
used. Yes,
left.
correct.
Yeah.
And so again, that's something that you probably want to refer to your user manual on
Okay.
or contact your specialist.
Right. Very good.